This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Anything discussed during this podcast does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice. Instead, all content is for general entertainment purposes only. Listeners should contact their attorney to obtain advice with respect to any particular legal matter. Listening to, contacting us, or any of the links or resources contained within this podcast and or website does not create an attorney-client relationship. The views expressed during this podcast are those of the individual lawyers in their individual personal capacities only.
All the legal ladies, all the legal ladies, all the legal ladies, all the legal ladies.
Welcome to All the Legal Ladies. Unwind with us as we navigate the fascinating world of legal tales, precedents, and the occasional objection-worthy joke. I'm Kat.
And I am Marsha.
I'm Alycia, and I'm here to fix not everyone's life, but everyone at this table's life. Maybe in the room. We'll see.
Yes, what you can't see is the person bundled up like it is, who's the character from the Pew Pew and the...
I could not
Christmas
begin to tell you.
Christmas story.
Like Ralphie's little brother.
Ralphie's little brother.
What is Ralphie's little brother? Danny, Frankie, something like that. Randy. Bundled up like Randy. I am not... It looks like she can't put her arms down, though.
Well, that's good. Yes. But she needs to go home.
Yes.
And take a break.
Mm-hmm. It's important to take your sick leave if you're sick.
Yes.
And you are good at telling us what not to do.
I love to tell everyone what to do. I'm really good at other people's lives. Not my life, but other people's lives.
The art of no.
Yes.
I am pretty good at that.
Yes. No is a sentence. It's a complete sentence.
I received the email from, is it the chamber that hosts the TEDx things down here, or is it just another organization?
Oh, yeah. TEDx.
The TEDx local. And this year I saw the title was, yes, and I was like, no.
No, period.
That is not what I need in my life right now. I don't need to hear 10 speakers telling me why yes is important. Nope.
Yeah, Sheryl Sandberg, we are not leaning in right now. I'm going to lean out a little bit.
Yes, I would like to be able to go to my children's in-school activities like mystery reader or their trips.
Yeah.
Stay home if you're not feeling well.
Yes,
Go home
stay
early.
home if you're not feeling well.
Yes.
If you are cold and running a temperature and taking medicine, go home.
She wasn't running a temperature, she said. She took her temperature and then took medicine, or took medicine and took her temperature. Either way, she wasn't feeling well.
Yes.
And go home. Don't spread your germs.
Or just
But we
take
care.
the rest you need.
Yes, take
Your
the
body
rest
to
you
get better.
need. We care.
If we didn't care so much, I wouldn't have made a list of all of Marsha's obligations, both work-related and personal, and then ordered is maybe a strong word. Insisted, tasked her to
Officially tasked.
yes,
on the calendar.
on our management system tasked.
And every time I logged in, it was overdue.
Yes.
Overdue. But
Still have one overdue.
I still have one overdue.
But besides that, how do
2
you
out of
feel,
3.
though?
66%. That's pretty good.
It took me going to the hospital to do that task, to mark it off as complete and resign. I feel fine because the world will go on without me.
And by going to the hospital, she means the time that we forced her to go to the hospital. Oh, my arm. My heart.
I don't know how
It's not actually a heart attack.
It's like, I don't know how I would feel if that impression was of me, but thankfully it wasn't. It was a little bit like the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie.
Goodness. Yeah.
Who was that? Pee Wee Herman? Just dying slightly off camera for like
Forever.
5 full minutes.
That was a good movie.
It's been too long since I've watched that one.
Yes. So the important thing is to take care of yourself.
Yes.
Because no one else will.
But we will try and help you to remember that.
Yes. Don't overtask yourself. No is a complete sentence. Take naps.
Rely on people
Yes.
because you can. You can delegate and ask for help.
Yes.
And you can't do everything. In trying
Correct.
to do everything, you may end up doing nothing.
Yep.
So
Correct.
Which kind of gets us into our next segment, next on the docket.
I'm curious how you're going to connect those.
Oh, you're really So back in the day when we thought we could do it all, when we were younger and dumber,
Yes.
what did
Dumber, differently dumb.
differently
Be
dumb?
differently dumb these days.
Yeah. Before you became an attorney, what'd you do?
Oh, before I became an attorney. So are we going back to high school?
Sure.
During high school, I worked at Roy Rogers.
Oh.
Yes, I worked at Roy Rogers. I was a cashier. Sometimes had to clean the bathroom. But it was fun. I worked both at a standalone Roy Rogers and then a Roy Rogers in the mall. Do people remember malls? Do we? But yes.
Annapolis Mall still exists.
So my experience, the reason why I say that is because at Roy Rogers, the standalone I worked at, Alan Payne, who was a big actor at the time, came in to my Roy Rogers because he lived in the community next to my community. He was from that community. And so he came in and said, and thought people would, freak out, go gaga over him. And I was like, oh, there's Alan Payne. Yeah, so what? He was in New Jack City. Was he in New Jack City?
I don't know. We're looking him up right now.
Yes. And so I met Alan Payne at Roy Rogers in Pennsauken. And then the one in the mall, I met my group, my favorite group of all time, Boyz II Men. Because they lived across the bridge from the city I lived in.
Old Town Philly.
Yes. So I ran out of Roy Rogers. Excuse me, customers, but I see my Wanye and Boyz II Men, and I had to get their autograph. So
Very nice.
I was like, oh yes. And then after that, college, I was a career mentor. College mentor, they called it, where I would go around and monitor high school students who were placed in different jobs throughout the county. So that was a college mentor. Then in college, I worked as a telemarketer during breaks because they paid good money.
Was it like to get alumni to donate?
No. It was to get a credit card.
Oh, okay.
They paid good money for people to hang up on you.
Okay.
And you would get a bonus if a certain amount of people would sign up to get a credit card. I had this one gentleman telling me that I don't need a credit card because I just won the lottery. I was like, oh, okay. Sure, you don't need a credit card then. He's like, I'm a millionaire. I was like, okay. So had interesting stories with that. And then law school, I did internships. So I interned at the bankruptcy court in New Jersey, the Federal Public Defender's Office, House of Ruth. So yeah. And then House of Ruth was my job after I graduated from law school. You have to advocate for yourself because I didn't work while studying for the bar exam. I said, nope, I'm not doing that. And then I called House of Ruth up, and I hadn't applied anywhere. I called House of Ruth up after I took the bar and said, you said you were going to hire me. Are you going to hire me? And they hired me.
Nice.
That's also how I got my scholarship at Howard. You said you were going to give me a scholarship to the law school. Are you going to give it to me? Yes. So advocate for yourself. What about you?
So my very first job, I was a hostess at a little family restaurant in my hometown. So I worked there when I was in high school. I interned at a law firm that did workers' compensation and personal injury. And I just remember all of the paralegals were buried under walls of files. I thought that wasn't the type of work I wanted to do. Let's see. What else did I do? I worked at Walmart for a summer. I waited tables at Applebee's for a summer. I did temping one summer and worked for the ABA, basically checking emails and making copies. And then in law school, I worked for nonprofits in the summer. So I did an externship with one of the cancer nonprofits. And then I worked for the Human Rights Campaign in summer. So those were all of my sort of pre-legal jobs.
My first paid job was at the Baltimore Washington International Airport. I worked in one of the little candy shops. So I got to see a couple proposals in the middle of the airport. That was kind of fun. I then started doing a lot of stipend paid internships because I wanted to be an astronaut. So I worked at Goddard Space Flight Center for a couple summers. I worked at the Navy Academy during senior year of high school. During college, I didn't really work. Like I worked for Best Buy for a little while. But you know, all of those retail places wouldn't let you go home. They're like, well, you have to work over Christmas. And it's like, I don't have a place to live. Bye. So that was always exciting. In law school, I did a couple internships, but then fell into a paid law clerk with the public defender's office. Though I did work for Michael's during one Christmas season, just as like seasonal. I loved it. I mean, it was crazy, but it was just opposite of anything to do with law and kind of mindless and just putting things away. And the people there were so wonderful. So it was a lot of fun, but I don't know that I could do that again these days. At least I was young then. So
I couldn't work in fast food. No. And cleaning their bathrooms. Heck no.
Yeah, it's like my experience waiting tables, I learned that there are certain types of personalities that do really well at that kind of work, and that is not my personality. So like I was adequate, but like it's not for me. But I very much appreciate what it takes to wait tables. And I appreciate what it takes to be a cashier at a store. So I'm very appreciative.
Customer service, even though it's different, you know, we are in customer service, so to speak, but dealing with a whole bunch of people day in, day out, you never know what personality you're going to get. And so,
having very little control over that.
Yes.
If somebody is, you know, unpleasant with us in a customer service respect, it's easier to interact with them less going forward.
Yes.
especially being our own bosses for this. So you said your first job out of the law school was House of Ruth.
Yes.
Any fun stories from that period of time?
So I guess the most memorable story was I was in the middle of a hearing, a trial, contested. The respondent was objecting to the protective order. And so we were in the middle of a hearing, and my client was on the stand. I was asking them questions. She was testifying, and he got up, and it wasn't a nice get up during the middle of testimony. He pushed the table, his chair flew back, started yelling, and then stormed out the courtroom. And so I'm just sitting there because I have a calm demeanor. So I was like, okay. He came back in, and then, as I said, so this is the type of behavior that he does often? Yes. We got, the protective order was granted, and then afterwards, his brother, who was outside, followed my client and I to the garage talking all this crap. And I was like, I wish you would. I wish you would, because I had, back then, I had pepper spray. And I always carry around a heavy purse. So I wouldn't mind pepper spraying you and knocking you upside your head if you tried something.
For a while, when I worked at the Domestic Violence Center, I was taking Krav Maga twice a week. And so I thought I was pretty tough during that time. I was not, but like I felt pretty tough.
But see, that goes back to my younger years, because I did hit somebody with my lunchbox when they messed with me. So I still had that demeanor, that temperament. I was like, you mess with me, I'm going to
Knock you upside your head.
harm you. And it wasn't those cloth lunchboxes. It was the
metal one. That's what I pictured in my head.
Yes. It was a strawberry shortcake metal lunchbox.
I still have my strawberry shortcake toy box. In the shape of strawberry.
I have since calmed down.
Not once have you hit someone here with a lunch.
I have not hit someone with a lunchbox since, 8th grade or whatever. However,
8th grade was later than I was expecting.
I don't know, because it runs together. I went to the same school from kindergarten through 8th grade. So
sometime during that period.
Sometime during that period. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think There were times when I thought people might get a little aggressive during DV cases, but I don't think I had anything where I was directly involved. I did have one case. I think they had a child in common, and there was a family member who had the baby out in the hallway. And so the other side of my case kept coming out and like taunting the family member and like snatching the baby and giving it back, snatching the baby and giving it back.
Oh.
And I finally said something to one of the bailiffs. I was like, do you mind just keeping an eye on that out there? Because, you know, it seems like they're trying to cause problems. And then my case got called and someone came up and whispered in my ear that he had been removed from the courthouse. I was like, oh, not just like made to sit down or like, no, just kicked out of the whole building.
Oh, no.
And so then someone did go around and let the judge know. And they're like, we're going to pass this for a moment and see. I guess they looked around outside and we went forward and got the order. Out of the whole building. Like,
Wow.
I was delighted. I'm not going to lie. You got to love those kinds of results.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, was it you or a coworker that kept killing respondents by accident?
No, that was not me.
Okay.
That was a coworker. Should clarify was not killing them themselves. Just had the parties who were being granted protective orders against them. Three of them died. Just all different kinds of ways. Again, I don't think it all related to this coworker or their actions. We're not going to get sued based on this podcast, not this episode anyway.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Man, my first one was public defender. So there was, so many stories. My favorite, though, sometimes, like you said, being with federal public defender on a previous podcast, that some of them were like, no, it's not me. Let's see the video. And then, but I had one gentleman that the facts of the case, as read on the record, so it's public information, was that somebody was stealing checks out of people's mailboxes, including one that happened to be a detective of our local St. Mary's County Sheriff's Department. And that somebody decided to try to cash a check at the bank and didn't realize that the bank teller's name was the same as on the check. Oh, my goodness. And so when he did try to pass this check to the person who should have owned the check and did not, they knew something was wrong. And separately, somebody stole from Walmart like a PS3 or whatever it was at the time, because it's 5s now, right? And returned apparently an empty shell, which eventually they found out when somebody else went to go buy it and it wasn't there. And they figured out who it was because the remaining checks were in that box.
Oh, my goodness.
In that box. That gentleman was very nice. Did not ask me to have a trial. And just asked for the best plea he could get with those facts, because he knew he was screwed. So that's my funnest story out of all of it. So
What about stories where, so for instance, another story when I was at the House of Ruth, we were in the middle of a trial, protective order. Opposing counsel leans over to me and says, after my presentation of the case, do you want to settle? So you want to settle? You're not going to win. And I looked at him and it's like, no. And then so he does his case, and then lo and behold, my client gets the protective order.
Yeah.
Those are some good moments.
yeah.
One of my very early cases was a much more experienced attorney on the other side, whose client was criminally charged related to the same facts, the protective order. So we were discussing settlement. It's like, well, my client can't testify. He's charged. I'm like, that is a situation that respondents often find themselves in. Like, we did have that trial. I did win. So like, well, obviously you have to dismiss it because my client can't testify. I'm like,
No.
that's
Not how this
any of this works.
There was a state's attorney back in the day, no longer a state's attorney. But I asked, I can't remember if I asked like what the plea was or something like that, or, and he was like, well, you should plead to get this. And I was like, well, I don't like that. So where's your witnesses? And he looked around and didn't have any. I was like, God, you're such a
Bitch. He called you a bitch.
He called me a bitch. I don't remember what type of rating we were going for on this.
I can
so.
leave it if it's not.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And needless to say, that case did get dismissed because he did have 0 witnesses. So, yeah. That was fun.
Yeah. And so if you weren't an attorney, what would you be doing?
You know, I've given that a lot of thought. It's hard to say exactly. Lately, I've been leaning towards maybe like executive assistant, like the person who actually runs everything and like keeps track of all of the little details and make sure that like everything's going smoothly. Like, I think I'd be good at that. I feel like they make decent pay.
I could have seen myself doing like some kind of technical work, working with my hands if I had gone to like tech school. But otherwise, probably teaching, because I do love teaching mock trial.
Yeah.
So probably like a high school teacher or something. I couldn't imagine smaller
Teachers
kids.
work too
but
hard.
Yeah, I mean, I know that now. Back in the day, I didn't know that. So,
Yeah, I think along the same lines as you, teaching, because you know I am all about the youth and seeing youth succeed. So teaching probably younger grades.
That's a lot of energy.
Yeah, but high schoolers, they have a lot of mouth.
Yeah. I don't know. I just 1 hour of Girl Scouts and I'm done. Like, send a message to our friend who teaches first grade. I'm like, I don't know how you do this all day, every day.
Yeah, so
Pay teachers more.
definitely pay teachers
Yes.
more.
yes.
They deserve it.
Well, while we're in school, we should go ahead and move on to our next segment of
Recess. We will spin the wheel. Oh,
It's cheaper to keep him.
cheaper to keep.
You look bad. Go home.
You're beautiful.
I mean, you are.
You're wonderful.
But you look like you don't feel good. Go home.
So it's cheaper to keep him. When Jeff Bezos split from his wife, Mackenzie Scott, in 2019, she received higher or lower than $50 billion from the divorce settlement.
It's one of the highest divorce settlements, I think, right?
She's done a lot of charitable giving.
She
since then.
does. I feel like it was more than that. Wasn't it like, I don't know. I feel like it's like a
I hope
zero
it
on
was
top
more
of
than
that.
We'll say that.
Yeah, higher.
Lower.
Oh!
38 billion.
38 billion.
I mean, it's still a good chunk of change.
That's
yeah.
still a good, yeah. British actor Colin Firth's wife of 22
Mr.
years
Yes.
received higher or lower than $14 million in their divorce
I
settlement.
didn't realize he got divorced.
I didn't know he was married.
Fair.
Well, 22 years, and he's an actor. He's built
Did
his
they-
career.
What year they got divorced?
No,
Trying to think of like how much he would be worth.
14 million.
I would still go higher.
I'm gonna go lower. Is he $1 million a movie guy?
Yeah. I'm going lower.
Lower.
Ah,
12.5 million.
12.5. Oh, that's not too bad either. Lance Armstrong divorced his wife, Kristen Richard, in 2002, and she received higher or lower than $8 million from the divorce.
I mean, the trend seems to be lower.
I think lower. Was he worth that much money back then?
Yeah, with all his endorsements and
Was that
Until they
before or
found
after the doping
Before
scandal?
the doping scandal,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
yeah, higher.
Higher.
Oh.
14 million.
14 million. Oh,
That was a lot of endorsements then.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
She got out at the right time.
She did.
yes.
And now we've come to our last segment, Childhood Traumas, where we read wild case stories from the attorneys on Reddit. And by we mean Alycia.
This one is from Auntie Cats. My first law gig, the attorney was my age. He would corner me at my desk, no escape, and tell me in detail about his sexual relations with his fiance, who was his first cousin. Every damn day.
Wrong.
That's icky.
That is just too much in that one or two sentences.
Yeah, the comment underneath is just so much to unpack here.
Yes, so much.
And I wish that was not normal.
Yeah.
But
So you've been lucky, again, working primarily for women. I mean, not that bad things can't happen when women are bosses, but I feel like that kind of stuff happens less.
we definitely had an attorney at the public defender's office that enjoyed terrorizing the secretary about the children, juveniles charged with sex offenses, and how, you know, her daughter was about the appropriate age. Yeah. Yeah. Gross.
Yeah, that is.
We can't help people sometimes.
No.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning into this episode. I'm going to die of all the legal ladies. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and listen to the audio on your favorite digital streaming platform.
And if you see Boyz II Men, abandon your post. Go after them. We'll see you next week.
Beautiful.